Is Scott Drew the Deion Sanders of college basketball? The answer may surprise you.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Baylor. I am being held prisoner at Guantanamo Bay, and that is Jackson Posey from Sports Illustrated's Inside the Bears. I don't know, look at the backdrop. Look at the setup I got going on. Just a bed and a singular window. I've been stuck here for weeks on end, Jackson. Thank you all for making Locked On Baylor your first listen every single day. Jackson, before you even speak, I've got a very funny story that I didn't know I was going to open the show with here. But since I said Guantanamo, it reminded me. I was at a grad party this weekend. There's an elderly woman there. She's like 85 probably. And we're at a restaurant, and she sits down in front of me facing the door. Now, Jackson, if you know me, anybody that does knows that I've got to face the door. In case there are intruders, I need to face the door. She, 85-year-old woman, faces the door. Not that she can't handle her own, but I said, listen, Grandma, in a nice way. Like she's called Grandma. I said, Grandma, if you're going to face the door, you're going to have to watch out for intruders. Like if a bad man comes, you just let me know. And she goes, oh, I will. Like if there's some man who looks scary coming up in here, I'll let you know. And I was like, all right, Grandma, that's nice. End of joke. And then she goes, if they look real mean, I'm going to tell you. And I was like, okay. And she said, if they look like they escaped from Guatemala, I'll be the first one to say something. I was like, whoa. There's a line. There's a definitive line. And we can't be just throwing in countries here. That's when it's racist. Come to find out, she meant Guantanamo, as in the bay in Cuba, not Guatemala. We had an almost racist at the graduation party. Jackson, you're going to Ukraine this summer to volunteer. You're a San Antonio Spurs fan, so you're excited about that. And you texted me this week that Deion Sanders and Scott Drew are the same in their respective sports for college basketball and college football. Please make all of the things that I have said in the last 30 seconds make sense.
Yes, Victor Wembanyama is the greatest player to ever play professional sports. If the Rockets got the number one pick, I would not have said that. I am going to Ukraine. Not really something that I initially was like, hey, this is a great idea. But prayed about it. Felt like the Lord was leading me there. And it's been a very winding path. I started learning Russian because I thought I was going to Poland. And then they're like, hey, you're not going to Poland. You're going to Ukraine. So maybe don't learn Russian because everyone there will think you're a traitor because you are speaking Russian. So I'm like, cool, don't want to go to prison in Ukraine or in Guatemala for that matter. Really anywhere. And wherever you're staying right now.
Trust me, you don't want to be where I am.
And so, working on learning Ukrainian. We're going to be hosting, I don't know how much we can talk about exactly where I'm going, but going to be hosting a camp for kids and working with a local church in South Central Ukraine. So, I'm excited. There's a lot. I was reading a newsletter.
Give me like a danger level here.
Danger level... In the village that we're going to be in, it's pretty low. The most dangerous part is we're going to enter at some point into the country in Kiev and then get on a train. And so that'll be the most dangerous part. My guess is that we're going to be calling China Spring football games in the fall. I'd say that's like a 95% chance. And if not, then who knows?
You do plan on surviving.
I do plan on surviving. And yeah, I would say that is a very solid likelihood. So
I can only imagine they would not send mission trips if the likelihood of survival was low. Like there's got to there's the safety in that at least.
Yes, and obviously I'll be sitting watching the door in case a Guatemalan walks in.
Yeah, gotta watch out those people from Guatemala apparently per grandma. It was also hilarious that two at the table had done mission trips in Guatemala that were at this graduation party. Like, whoa, okay, too far. And she's like, well, that's where they put all the prisoners. And then we deduced, okay, she means Guantanamo. Jackson, Victor, our friend Vic from France, he is a pretty good basketball player. He's not good enough to play for Baylor Bears, though. He's not even going to try to go to Baylor. Scott Drew, you texted me that Scott Drew is the Deion Sanders of college basketball. I would like you to now make this make sense. As today becomes, as we've unpacked now 5 minutes worth of just wildness, unpack for me here how Scott Drew and Deion Sanders could be remotely connected.
Yeah, I would not say personality-wise, they're the same. I would not say
Shocker.
that. No, yeah, exactly identical. Yeah, and even like in terms of the caliber of coach they are, I think Scott has proven, at least to this point, to be far and above wherever Deion Sanders is at right now.
Yeah.
My concern is that they found themselves in pretty much the same position right now,
Okay.
where neither one of them, as of like a month ago, can field an entire scrimmage. Right? There was a point in the offseason where Colorado only had 20 players coming back. Deion has done this big cutthroat thing. Everybody knows big cutthroat thing. Basically told everybody pack their bags. I got my own coming in their Louis, and he didn't have very many bags. He just had his 2 little carry-ons for Southwest Airlines or whatever, and then after that, who knows?
Which are free. Southwest Airlines, they're free.
Which are free. It's better than Spirit, so that's progress. But yeah, really rough position for Colorado. The difference between Colorado and Baylor is what at this point? Baylor's lost all their starters. Colorado's lost basically every impact player that they had from last season. And the way that they're building back, there's not much there for them. Most of the impact transfers have already picked their homes, right? Hunter Dickinson, he's going to Indiana. All of the big time portal guys, right? Like you get Jordan Hunter. You get
Travis Hunter.
There we go. Close enough.
One of those names.
Yeah. And then on Scott Drew's side, right, you get a 5-star in Jacoby Walter, you get a 5-star in Yves Missy, and you're still missing half the roster, right? At this point, you lost 8 players to transfer and graduation in the draft. And unless Jalen Bridges comes back, you're taking all of the weaknesses that existed last season in terms of a lack of depth in the forward spots, and it's completely gone. There's nothing left there. Yeah, Jaden Nunn is a fantastic defender, but you don't want him guarding like the 6'8", 6'9", like Jalen Wilson type guys. Yeah. And so, yeah, I'm concerned. In Scott we trust, but I am concerned about the way that the roster situation is going. And I think you can look at it from the outside looking in and be like, this position, he just looks like a nice version of Deion Sanders at this point.
You know, I want to battle with the counterpoint, and then I want to battle my own counterpoint.
Perfect.
The counterpoint would be Colorado sucked at football last year. There's the overhaul of the roster because Colorado wants to change everything about the culture. They want to take out all the players, and it's worked from a fan perspective. They sold out their spring game, and they kind of want to start from scratch. For Baylor, it's different. You didn't want everybody to transfer out. You didn't want to lose your entire roster from last season. But to that counterpoint, I think Baylor had a below average season. Maybe not over the scope of college basketball. They weren't a below average team whatsoever. They were elite by most intents and purposes compared to the majority of the 363 teams that exist. However, for Baylor's standard, for where Scott Drew wants to be, it's not a first weekend exit for the second year in a row. It was not an exit to the 6th seed Creighton Blue Jays. You would have liked a Sweet 16 Elite 8 team. That's where it felt like the ceiling was at points in time this season. So you're okay with a little bit of roster turnover to try to bring in something new. Are you okay with the dramatic extent to which the roster is turned over? I don't think you can be. This team looks entirely different, like completely different. You've lost all your starting 5, and Jalen Bridges has yet to make an announcement. Jackson, does it still concern you? Because look, Deion Sanders has picked up a ton of transfers. He has filled these roster spots. That's one big difference here. Baylor has not. Does it concern you that Baylor has only one transfer to this point now, Thursday, May 18th?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about the position that Baylor's put themselves in, not having a full roster at this point in the offseason, the transfer portal's closed, nobody else can enter. I mean, you can leave. You might not be able to leave this room that you're in, but they're allowed to leave the transfer portal.
Legally, no. Yeah, legally, no.
And so when you're in that position, what do you turn to? Do you turn to walk-ons? Do you try and find grad transfers from – I mean, you're not getting a grad transfer from the Ivy League, right? Like, but you're probably looking at that level of basketball to see who can we pull in for just one season as a bridge at the end of our bench. That's not the greatest way to keep up a culture, right? Like if you're wanting to bring guys through, and Scott has proven to be able to build a culture, not doubting that at all, but you want young guys to be able to come in to learn the system and then to lead when they're at the top. When you're bringing guys in for 1 year and they're dipping over and over again, it sort of just becomes this war of attrition, even within the locker room of, okay, who's been here before? Who actually has experience? Why are the seniors are coming in and they're like leading, but they also haven't been here as long as me, right? Like, and maybe a guy like D'Antoine Grimes is able to step up and do that. Hopefully Langston Love is able to do that. Jonathan Chamachachu was still there. But this sort of feels like a spot that Scott Drew, at least in recent memory, hasn't been in, where he's sort of building from the ground up out of nowhere. And he might be starting 3 true freshmen, and we'll see how that goes.
Oh, I don't love it. I'm straight up not having the best time. Dale Bonner has transferred. Zach Loveday's transferred. Don't let people forget. LJ Cryer has gone to Houston. You've got Jaden Nunn in. You've lost Jordan Turner. Not that all these are big pieces, but then there's the Keontae George, and there's the Adam Flagler, the Jalen Bridges. All 5 of your starters are gone, and now you got to pick up the pieces with a whole lot of guys who aren't very, like, okay, maybe Jalen Bridges can be the guy next year. Maybe Dale Bonner can step up and be the guy next year. They're leaving. Who's going to be that guy, the senior experienced guy? Jonathan Chamo can be that, but we've yet to see him with an entire season of being the guy they called upon, the leader they've called upon. That's going to be a huge transition into next year. And Jackson, I want to know your way too early ceiling for Baylor men's basketball and outlook on what the rest of the offseason has to look like for Baylor to be in a better spot next year. But first, German short hairs, Labrador retrievers, my shorts. What do they all have in common? Bird dogs. When I tell you they're the most comfortable thing I've ever put on my body, I mean it. And I put a lot of stuff on my body. These are unbelievable. It's like I'm wearing air. It's like I put nothing on. Worth the money? Yes. Tenfold. Spectacular. Also worth the free Yeti that you get when you buy Bird Dogs right now with my promo code that I'm going to give you. They have a stretchy fabric that make my legs look good. I've always considered myself to have the legs of horses. I have large calves and large, like, what, quads? Is that what that's called? Like, just my thigh. My general thigh is large. My legs, I don't know what it is. My butt, that area. So I've needed shorts that, like, don't, I want to, you show off a little bit, but also I don't want to be so tight that it's gross and feels bad. These are not too tight to be gross and feel bad. These shorts are my new favorite golf shorts. I am bad at golf. I'm not very good at golf, but I'm better now because I'm wearing Bird Dogs. Right now, guys like Dave Portnoy does his pizza reviews wearing these. College football nerds say the perfect pants for dads that have a little extra gut. I'm building mine right now with a few too many Miller Lights. Bird Dogs make these dads look great. They make me look great. Bird Dogs are what you need right here, right now. Look, go to birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege and just try this. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege. Enter the promo Locked On College, all caps, Locked On College. They'll throw in a free custom Bird Dogs Yeti style tumbler with every order. Free custom Bird Dogs Yeti style tumbler with every order at Locked On College. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege using promo code Locked On College. Do it now, please. I dare you, and see what happens. Jackson, you ever had a pair of Bird Dogs?
I've not, but you're making me want one.
Yeah, man. There's something about them. They feel good, and I like them, and I enjoy them. One thing that I do not feel good about, do not like, and do not enjoy is the way that Baylor basketball's offseason has gone to this point. Where would you grade? And we're going to get into the progression. Look, it could end up being a really good season next season, but to this point, Baylor's offseason to me has not been where I wanted it to be, especially with the departure now of Jalen Bridges, which I expect to become official. Where do you sit, Jackson? What do you think about what Baylor's put together in the last month?
I think it's tough to give a grade other than incomplete at this point, just because of how much of the roster is left to fill out.
Which is not a good thing.
Not a good thing.
No, probably not a good thing.
An incomplete does not help your GPA at all.
No.
So I think it is worth pointing out Baylor has a 5-star forward committed for next recruiting cycle, Jason Asamoah. That's probably a big reason why you're not going after these high-level forwards, because you want him to be able to come in and think he has a chance to start year one, right? And so, okay, we can do this, but are you sort of setting aside this year by not pursuing a forward in that area, right? Probably also waiting for Jalen Bridges, right? Is he going to leave? Is he going to stay? I don't know that he's going to get drafted as high as he wants to. He could if he comes back and shoots well, but really off year from behind the arc for him. I think right now, you probably grade the offseason as I'm going to be more generous than you, probably a C+ or B- at this point. Just because you get Yves Missy reclassifying to this year. You hold on to the commitments of Jacoby Walter and Miro Little. Those are not always givens, right? Especially when you have players of that caliber who are waiting to commit. When you're actually able to bring them in, that's always a win. And as we know with Baylor football. And so, I think you do have to give credit for the recruiting from the high school ranks, but definitely concerned about what the front court looks like and how the bench, will there be a bench at all?
Yeah.
Yet to find out.
Well, so here's the deal. I know 3 guys. Their names are Jonathan Chamwa-Chachwa, Josh Ojenwuna, and Eves Missy. All equally cool names. They all play the exact same position on a basketball court. And I'll be honest with you, Jackson, I look at the 3 of these guys, and I don't see them moving into a Jalen Bridges, Mark Vidal, Caleb Lohner type role as a forward. They all seem like pretty true centers. Don't know if you knew this. Scott Drew is known for playing with 1 center at most, sometimes 0 on the basketball court. How do you put those 3 guys into the rotation? How does the addition of Eves Missy truly help a team that already has 2 big men when they don't usually play with big men?
I think Eves Missy unlocks potentially, and we're yet to see whether he's able to do this as a freshman. He did reclassify up, so he skipped a year of high school. I think he has the potential to unlock a lot of what John and Josh do well. I don't think you can play John and Josh together. That doesn't work. Neither of them are quick enough on the perimeter. Eves is a lot more fleet of foot, you might say. He's a lot more bouncy, but he also can move a lot better on the perimeter than either of those 2 can. If you can consistently have Jonathan Chamwa-Chachwa hitting threes like he showed he has the potential to last season, I don't know if he can, but if he can, then you can have Eves running as a true like pick and roll dive man, consistently like finishing on alley-oops. That type of vertically athletic center, I think, is something that the team was really missing last season. Someone who could consistently put pressure on the basket. And then Josh, I think, I don't know what he's going to look like this season, but he showed flashes of being able to dribble a little bit, right? Being able to hit a couple of open men. And if his playmaking continues to improve, that 2-man game between him and Eves, I think could be a really interesting thing to explore. If this is a team that's looking to win a Big 12 championship, which it is, I don't think that's going to be a central part of the offense. But especially early on against like the lower major teams that they'll be playing, I think that's something they'll look to try out.
This team might go 500 or just above it in non-conference play next season, and that's got to be okay. They've got to grow into a squad that learns how to play together, because it will be, I mean, to my knowledge, I can't think of a more fresh Scott Drew team. I can't remember the last time Scott Drew lost all 5 starters and lost basically your top 7 contributors going into the next season. This is the true test of, okay, if Scott Drew can coach, then what does that look like next season? Minutes-wise, you've lost your top 6 guys. How does Scott Drew respond? He has responded, as you mentioned, by getting Eves Missy to reclassify, getting Jaden Nunn out of the transfer portal, Miro Little, Jacoby Walter. Who going into next season? Make me feel good, Jackson. Let's get ceiling talk here. Who is the best player, the leader on paper of next year's Baylor men's basketball team?
I think it's got to be Jaden Nunn. I think.
Whoa, hello. Watch out.
You don't always think of, oh, this guy transferred from a mid-major program and he's going to lead this, storied I mean, I think could be that guy. I don't know if they'll put him in a position to be the primary initiator, but he's one, I think, going to be the best perimeter defender on the team. Averaging like a steal and a half for VCU and has a lot more lateral quickness than a lot of other players on this team. I think you also look at, he's crazy athletic. I mean, he had this amazing poster dunk against St. Mary's that went as viral as a VCU play could go. Consistently like hitting step backs, and I mean, he's not like a Kyrie Irving, like break everybody's ankles type guy, but he's crafty enough and has that quickness and that burst off the dribble to be able to get to the rim consistently. I would look to Jaden Nunn as a potential all Big 12 caliber player. Outside of him, I think you probably look to Langston Love and say, hey, you had blue chip pedigree coming out. This is your time. This is your time to shine. And I don't know what he's looking like with that cornea, but if he's healthy, I think that's another guy you look to as this guy needs to step up and become a real leader on this team.
2 questions with that response, 2 follow-ups. The first, so then where does Jonathan Tchamwa Tchatchoua fit into this if he's not one of the first 2 guys you name as the leader of the squad?
I will say off the court, it's got to be Jonathan. I mean, he's the clear off the court leader. But on the court, I think Eves is going to get minutes. He's too athletic. He's able to put too much pressure on the rim for Scott to leave him on the bench, especially with the lack of size that this team has. And
Didn't reclassify for nothing.
No, absolutely not. And I think it is worth mentioning he was old for his class, and so I believe that he will be draft eligible after his freshman season, even with reclassifying. I know there was talk about like, oh, maybe he has to stay 2 seasons. He should be eligible after his freshman year. And so I'm not certain that that's going to happen, but that is something to sort of keep in mind is anyone on this team could leave at any moment. I look at John as being clearly the emotional leader of the team. I mean, there's nobody else who has been through as much as he has or who has that fire that he has. But on the court, he's just, especially offensively, I don't think he's going to play a big enough role to be seen as like, this is the on-court captain of the team.
Mostly because that's how Scott Drew uses the centers as well.
Absolutely.
You know, it's not a program. You get a lot of these Big East teams where you look to the big man to be a leader. Baylor's not one of those teams that's going to do that. That's okay. They won a national championship based off guard play. Jackson, the second follow-up question based on your assessment of who the leader will be for this team, where does Jacoby Walter fit into this? Because he could be the like Keontae George, but better. To me, I think he will have a better season next year than Keontae George had for Baylor this year.
I'm really interested to see how Jacoby Walter plays as, I think he's an ancillary option. I think that you probably have Nunn as your number 1 and probably have Langston Love as the primary ball handler. If that's happening and you have Jacoby Walter sometimes spotting up in the ways that Keontae George was early in the season, what does that look like? Because so often in high school, he was just like by far the best player on the court, right? And so he's the only initiator. I'm curious to see how he's able to play off ball. If he's consistently cutting and setting screens off ball and like willing to buy in the way that Keontae was, the sky's the limit for him. I don't see him as, I think it'll take a little bit of adjustment for him in terms of having to score against Big 12 defenses. He doesn't have the tightest handle in the world. He's not, I don't think, as explosive as Nunn is. With that said, he's going to be one of the best freshmen in the Big 12. And the fact that he's not, like, I don't think he's going to score 20 points a game, but we shouldn't be putting that type of expectation on him. He's not going to save the team single-handedly, but he's, especially if he can figure out how to lock in on defense, he could be special.
That's the reason I think he'll have a better season than Keontae George is there's less pressure than what was put on Keontae George from day one. Jackson, last thing I'll throw at you here. You've mentioned the Big 12 quite a bit, and Baylor's got an opportunity to have some guys in the conversation for Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, which Tchamwa Tchatchoua has already won. Big 12 Freshman of the Year, Jacoby Walter will make a case for that. As of today, with a 14-team Big 12, Texas, OU, and the 4 new schools, where does Baylor sit? I mean, where should this team be preseason-wise in that 1 through 14?
I think going in, I think you can go ahead and say goodbye to being top 3 in that conference with LJ Cryer and Houston up at the top. Kansas just consistently dominating everyone, and I think Kansas State. I'm less worried about Kansas State. They're losing both of their guys, right? So they obviously have talent, but I think that's
Tyler Perry. They got Tyler, the great director Tyler Perry.
Great movies. But I would say UT, Kansas, and Houston in some order are going to make up that top 3. After that, I really do think it's anybody's game. I mean, you're hopefully going to sweep Cincinnati. You're going to sweep BYU. You're going to sweep UCF. And if you can consistently beat up on the lower tier teams, like I don't know what West Virginia is going to look like this year. Oklahoma State, a lot of question marks.
West Virginia's got a lot of great transfers, but also their coach said a bad word. So
yes,
don't really know what's going to happen there.
Hey, he got off with like a suspension, so a short suspension,
and $1 million for saying a word that you cannot say. Very irreprehensible. You shouldn't do that ever at all. But he did.
Just don't say that live on the radio.
Just
Seems
avoid
like a bad idea.
bad words.
Forever.
Avoid slurs altogether. It's probably a good rule of thumb. Jackson, thanks for joining the show today. Good luck in Ukraine. We'll probably have you on before you leave because that just sounds really cool. And I do think Baylor basketball can be good.
I'm pro Baylor basketball.
Good. You are Baylor Bears. I like to hear that. Jackson's a freshman at Baylor, going to be a sophomore. So he's basically like me, but better, less clickbaity. So follow him on Twitter at by Jackson Posey, and go buy some bird dogs. I'm Drake Toll from Prison Cell. That's Jackson Posey from San Antonio Spurs. This has been and always will be. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Come back tomorrow for more Baylor stuff. Locked on Baylor.